Welcome back to the Full Force Fathers podcast, episode 29. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. You know what happened this morning?
What's that?
Bryce lost his first tooth.
What?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
How am I just finding this out on the show and not from a text or a picture or a phone call?
Because I want to save it. I want to see your initial reaction because, I mean, second child, last child, both my kids have lost teeth. Now I told him this morning he's gonna be getting some hair on his chest soon. He's gonna be shaving. Like, it's going by too fast. But yeah, he lost his first tooth. He was waiting. He didn't want me to pull it. Didn't want me to get in there and grab it. And I tried the last couple of days. I was looking at it. I was like, maybe I could get it. But it was still in there a little bit. And this morning he said it hurt. I was like, all right, well, let me just look at it. And I just put my finger in. I kind of wiggled it. And I gave it a little bit. And he didn't even realize it. And he's like, he kind of felt something was different. And then I showed it to him. And then he put his finger in his mouth and saw the blood. He's like, oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Then he kind of lost it for a second. But yeah, it was at breakfast, and now he's off to school, one less tooth right here on the bottom. So I told him later I'll teach him how to shoot water out of his mouth and drink with a straw through it so he can keep his mouth closed. He's super excited about that.
Oh, man, losing a tooth, that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's most excited for the tooth fairy. He already got his little tooth pillow out. He got the tooth in it. It's underneath his pillow, so he's ready for the tooth fairy to make an appearance tonight.
Yeah, no, don't fall asleep.
Yeah, no kidding. I got to be on guard.
Hey, it's happened. It's happened with us. I mean, that's funny. Now, my kid's in the tooth fairy. It's what? I mean, obviously, it sounds like Bryce was super excited. But the more interesting thing I want to ask you now that we're talking about pulling teeth, Bryce seemed to be tough. Didn't bother him. Didn't cry. How was Kendall when it comes to pulling teeth?
She's actually great. The first one, she was a little nervous, but now it gets loose and she comes over. She's like, Dad, pull the tooth. Just do it. Get it out. Because she wants the cold, hard cash.
Yeah, no, it's my kids, obviously Madison, every time she needed a tooth pulled, it was a freaking Broadway musical stage drama. I could not deal with Madison when it came to pulling teeth. It was just the whines and the cries and it hurts and the blood. But Caroline, on the other hand, as you know, Caroline's like, Dad, I got a loose tooth. Okay, no problem. Grab a tissue, dry off the tooth, boom, pop it out. Like, she's got a tooth that's loose right now that's not even close to be ready to pull out. She's probably asked me once every 4 days for the last month, can you pull this tooth out? I'm like, dude, it's not ready yet. You just want me to rip your teeth out of your head. You're sick.
There's one tooth that I ripped out of Kendall's mouth that wasn't quite ready to go, and I realized that about mid-pull, and that one hurt her. She got pretty mad, and it bled for a while, and that one was pretty bad. So I tried that. I tried not to do that again. But when Bryce first was like, "Hey, Dad, I think my tooth is pretty close to coming out," we were sitting around at breakfast, and we're all throwing out ideas on what I could do. And I used to tell him about the stuff my dad used to do. He used to have me put my hand up to my mouth and point to which tooth it was. And then he'd just go like this and he'd smack my hand and try and knock it out. That only happened once because then I was like, the hell with this. I'm not doing that again. And then there's the old close the door trick, right?
Yeah.
I told him I'd go and get a hammer and a screwdriver and tap at it. He didn't like that very much. And Kendall was like, why don't we tie a string to the back of the car, Dad, and just drive the car away?
Oh, Kendall would say something about her brother like that for sure.
Of course she would.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we didn't, nothing extravagant with us. Just, Caroline's like, line them up, knock them out. Madison's a drama queen, and we'll see with Finley when it comes to how she reacts to getting her teeth pulled when time comes. Because she's 4, she's going on 5, so she's really not that far away from losing her first tooth or two. And I think my kids, I don't know, I think it's a hereditary thing, but my kids always lost their teeth a little bit later than earlier. Mm-hmm. I think, Madison was probably a full grade behind everybody else, and then they started coming out like wildfire in terms of how fast they came out.
Yeah. Yeah, Kendall and Bryce were both once they turned 6, that's when they started losing teeth now. So
yeah, I don't
which seems to be a little later. I think a lot of kids start losing them around 5, but whatever.
Awesome. Well, all I know is congrats to Bryce for losing his first tooth. Little B man, just going to start But he's probably going to show it off to all the girls at school today, too, with his tank top on.
Oh, for sure he is. Yep, he's rocking a tank top as usual. Tank top and gym shorts.
Well, it was funny.
His best life.
Like you said the last night, I think it was last night when we spoke, you're like, dude, it's just so hot out still. Like, I'm just sweating. Walk to the car, sweat. I mean, here we are at the end of September, and it's still just brutal.
It's 100 degrees all week. It's 100. And I called you and I was like, you know what? I'm at the point where I'm just tired of being hot. I'm sweaty. Everything's just kind of like hot and sweaty all the time. And it's like being I equate it to being at the end of winter back in Connecticut, when it's like all you want to do is get to the warm weather. Like, you've had enough of the cold. Please, for the love of God, just get me to the next season. And we are on the doorstep of the best time of the year here. And I just so badly want it.
Yeah, when we got back, it's been a full week since we returned from New England, and the weather was just perfect up there. 70s up in Vermont, it was in the 50s, and then we got home last week, right on Tuesday, and it was 87 and humid. And the rest of last week, Thursday, it was like 90 freaking 2 or 3, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Does it ever cool down? But hey, we got blessed. Friday we got a little weather change. We actually had a night in the 40s over the weekend. So I'll take 70s during the day, low 50s at night, year round if I could.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt about it.
But anyway, so congrats to Bryce. Let's set up the show here. We got a good one. Got a bunch of different topics we're going to talk about. As always, our new tradition. We are starting with the famous episode 29. So we are doing famous number 29 in sports, and I'll start off today. I'll go football. I'll let you go baseball. And football, obviously, Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, the great running back, number 29. He probably is the most famous. But someone even more our generation, he played for that Legion of Boom in Seattle, won a Super Bowl. Earl Thomas, the safety from Seattle, was just an absolute beast of a player in his day. And then another safety I'll throw out there, Eric Berry, who is the Chiefs safety. And if I'm not mistaken, he ended up getting cancer during in the prime of his career, just towards the second half of his career. He ended up having cancer. I think he fought through it, but those are the big 3 football 29s that I could think of. What you come up with?
Well, we've got some great baseball ones. How about Rod Carew,
Hall of Famer?
We've also got Hall of Famer. Somebody that I used to watch growing up, John Smoltz. Now he's in the broadcast booth. I mean, you can't go wrong with Smoltz. He's incredible. And good old fan Smoltz favorite for me was. Go ahead. Sorry.
The thing about John Smoltz is everyone forgets how good that Braves pitching staff was, and they only won World Series, but they had Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox. Imagine that as your 1, 2, 3 in any particular order, and they only won one World Series title. And that team was together for a long time.
Yeah, they were. And then for John Smoltz too, to go from starter to closer, I mean, he could do it all. So he was incredible. And then just one for me that I was always a fan of watching was Adrian Beltre. He was just a fun player to watch. Goofy guy. I used to love it when he'd hit a home run over to Monster and he just dropped down to a knee and just boom, knock it out of the park.
He had that tremendous swing. He had that tremendous swing where he just, it looked like, how the hell did he hit that ball that far? Because he always dropped, and he actually wasn't a halfway bad third baseman for years. I mean,
he was good. Yeah,
he played. I think the majority of his career, his best years were in Texas. I think, right? He was a Ranger for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, did he play for the Red Sox?
He was a Texas Ranger. Yeah, he did.
And then I did notice in the show notes you put a hockey player in there. Who the hell is that?
I know this is way out of the box for me, but I just remember from my days at ESPN showing hockey highlights, always hearing this guy's name. Marc-Andre Fleury was a goalie for the Penguins. I think he won 3 Stanley Cups, and he took the Golden Knights to their first Stanley Cup appearance.
That's the biggest
a little hockey love in there. That's not you'll probably never get that from me again. So enjoy that little hockey tidbit.
Well, hockey's cool. Hockey playoffs are great. The Stanley Cup playoffs are always
awesome.
Good. I don't know very many. I mean, I know players just because I know sports, but Marc-Andre Fleury, even if you had never seen that name before and you said, Marc-Andre Fleury, what sport is this? You're guaranteed saying hockey because of the name alone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, again, that's probably the last hockey tidbit you'll get from me because it's not really my jam. But I remember that name from my days in sports.
Awesome. Well, moving on quickly here. We're going to talk a couple topics we want to talk about today before I get into the Bible verse. I want to talk about, I didn't expand really on the Vermont and Connecticut trip last week because we had just gotten back and everything. So there's a couple things that really kind of stuck out to me, and they're fresh in my memory that I wanted to kind of talk about some dad things, especially for the girl dads out there. And then the second thing I want to talk about, you've heard the phrase 75 hard a bunch of times on the show, but we're going to touch base on 75 hard. Once again, Dave and I had just finished it a couple days apart. We also want to talk about one other person that just finished. And then I came up with some budgeting things today that I want to kind of let Dave take the lead on, but I was thinking about it because of what's going on in the world with high rates and high inflation and all that good stuff. And Dave, I know you had a couple things, and then we'll get into our book review. And I mentioned the book review now. We're not going to talk about the book till later, but the Bible verse that I picked today came from the book that we're going to talk about later. And it's from Psalm 62, verse 8. And it says, "Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge." And I don't know. It struck a chord with me because I just think, sometimes people only pray and talk to God in times of, in down times. Like now, they pray that they find a job, or they pray that they can make some more money, or they pray for health in times of COVID, when really the way I read it, trust in him at all times. All right. Do what the good book says. Just let it all out, the good, the bad, everything in between. Just talk to him, pray. I mean, I don't know how many people out there that listen do pray on a daily basis. I do every night before I go to bed, and I do every morning, and I read my Bible with my time of scripture. But I just think, we just got to trust him but not just when times are tough, even in good times, because he's got a hand in everything. So I just feel that it's important to, be open to, he's always listening. He's always watching, and just pour your heart out to him. And that verse, I've had read previously, but going over the show notes today about our book review, it really, I reread it, and I was like, man, that fits the times right now with just the chaos in the world and for how little good you read about and all the bad that we're reading about right now. I just feel like that verse really stuck out to me. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is perfect. But I want to expand just a little bit and say that not even just in that, it goes into all the different areas of our life, right? We always, when times are tough, that's when we kind of dig in and we try and get ourselves out of whatever it is we're in, whether that's financial trouble, maybe it's poor health, or we've gained weight. And, in those times that things are tough, we do the things we need to get out of it. It's the same as if you're trusting in God when times are tough. When money's tough, you're fighting to get out of it. When you're trying to lose weight, you're working hard to lose that weight and get yourself healthy. But when you get to the better times, what is it that you do? And most people just fall off there. That's where they fall off. That's where they kind of let those things go to the wayside. And it's the same thing with your faith. When things are good, that's a time to rejoice and still go to God and thank him for the blessings that you have. Just as the same as, when you finally lost the weight, keep up the good work, keep fighting that fight, and don't let those gains fall apart. So it kind of goes all the way. It's full circle for me.
Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, no, it's just, that's the thing. Everyone, like you said, complacency, like, all of a sudden you take the weight off or you make the strides. And unfortunately, in the way this world works, it's just a revolving door, right? People, they get up, and no matter what it is for you to do for a living or however your situation are, you get to a good spot and then you take your foot off the gas, right? It's the same thing with praying, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone prays when they need it. If something good happens, then all of a sudden they forget, you know what I mean? And that, it's a full, like you said, it's a full circle thing. It's an all the time thing that I just think we need to focus a little bit more on. But, so there's your Bible verse today from Psalm 62, verse 8. Just trust in him at all times, guys, and good things happen, and have faith, keep the faith and whatnot, no matter what your situation is right now. But the first topic I want to talk about, this is what happened. I didn't really set the scene last week because, like I said, we had just gone back. But so when we got up to Connecticut, a couple weeks ago, we had drove up, spent the night, made sure I saw my dad and anything, but we had already planned to head up to Vermont for a few days to my buddy's cottage that I used to go to when I was a little kid. And it was so cool to bring my kids to it. But the best part about this was you were in the middle of nowhere. There was little to no cell phone service. Obviously the cottage that we stayed at, my friend's sister works remote, so there was internet there, but little to no service. And if you know me, Dave knows me, dude, that's my playground right there. I don't got to look at my phone. Are you kidding me? I don't have to worry about it ringing or getting an email to come through. And it's just that, like, if I could live my life and make a living that way, as Dave knows, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'd be gone. See ya. I'd be in the camper in the middle of the woods somewhere. And if I just had internet connection just enough to work, I would be long gone. But the thing that I want to bring up, and this is more of a parenting, I don't want to call it a tip. It's just a parenting style, the style that I abide by, and I know Dave does too, to a certain degree. Maybe he's not as psychotic as I am when it comes to camping and being out in the woods and stuff. But I just want to stress how important it is to take your kids outside. And this message is, for all parents, take your kids outside. Take them to the park. Take them, ride a bike. Go play some sports. Go walk through the woods, whatever. But I really want to focus this little bit on girl dads. As you all know, I'm a girl dad. I have 3 girls, and a lot of dads, and I hear it, a lot of dads, they pray for the boy, or I hope we get a boy. They end up getting a girl, and some dads are like, oh man, I can't play ball with them. I can't play catch with them. And that's just so much. You couldn't be further from the truth. Now all 3 of my girls are totally different in the sense of their behavior, the way their mannerisms, their personalities, they're all different. But teaching them a love of the outdoors is something that's true and that sticks with them. And the big thing this weekend, or last week when we were there, was, I took, for those dads that say, oh, I got a daughter, and a lot of us men, we go fishing and hunting and blah, blah, blah. Madison had more fun fishing than I'd ever seen. I'd ever seen her on a soccer field, or in a classroom, or on a basketball court, or at the park, riding a bike, you name it. The freaking shit-eating grin, the ear-to-ear smile that kid had every time she caught a fish, even if she had a hit. And like we had, he had a canoe up there. He had a little paddle boat where you can pump your feet. And I couldn't keep that kid out of the water. No technology, no nothing. Fishing pole in hand and a paddle boat. And she went out there and just went ballistic for 2.5 days. I mean, we caught a bunch of fish. Don't get me wrong, we did a lot of fishing. She caught the biggest fish by far. She caught like a 2.5 pound, for those that know about fishing, she caught like a 2.5 pound smallmouth, which is a big fish, especially for a little kid to catch. And it's just, you don't need to worry, just because they're girls, it doesn't mean it's always going to be dresses and makeup and painting fingernails and playing princess. It's, yeah, every girl has that phase, but that's not, it doesn't always have to be that, you know what I mean? Like fishing, hiking, shit. Madison and Finley both slept in a tent. We had a cottage to sleep in, and I said, if I'm going to Vermont, I'm sleeping in a tent. And Madison and Finley both slept in the tent with me the first night. It was 40 degrees. Like, that's the type of shit you can do with your girls, especially that you think, oh, it's not just reserved for boys. It's boys and girls alike. It's, it's getting your kids outside and getting them away from screens. And you don't know how much fun they're going to have. We hiked up Mount Pisco. It's 2,800 feet. It's like 2,000 feet of vertical gain in 2 miles. And all 3 of my girls rucked right up there. We had the dog, and Finley was on my shoulders, and we had more fun climbing that mountain together. So don't, the message is, you don't have to just have boys to do those things. You can do all those things outdoors with girls as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, we don't have lakes here, so fishing and that sort of thing doesn't quite happen out here. So my kids have never been. Now they want to go. So I told them, when we go see Uncle Brett, he'll take you fishing, because fishing's not really my jam. Never has been. But, they want to try it and they want to do it. But that being said, just being outside with your kids makes such a difference. Like you said, it's not just boys. Like, we'll take the BB gun out back. We'll set up some cans on the edge of the fire pit. And Kendall loves doing it. She loves shooting the BB gun and doing that stuff. So, like, all those types of things that we just think, boys like to do, girls like to do it too. Kendall likes to go throw the football around. She likes to throw the baseball around. She just loves being outside, and, that's like their favorite thing. So yeah, just because you have girls, don't limit them from those things. And not even just outside, like have them turn a wrench on a car, have them help you with some woodworking projects, digging outside in the dirt. Like, those things are so important. And, to get them to experience those things, and they might find something that they love. But, when you were talking about fishing, the day you called me, you told me about Madison catching the biggest fish. You had one thing that you told me that stood out to me. And who was the proudest person on that? Tell everybody who the proudest person was.
Well, my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And for those that know me personally, my dad, his nickname is the Legend for hunting and fishing, because the dude goes always catches fish, but he's not lucky. He's put the time in, it's like Cam Haynes with bow hunting. He puts the time in. My dad's put the time in over the course of his 65 years on this earth to perfect his craft of hunting and fishing. But, to tell him, he was so pumped, and he's like, I got to see pictures, send me pictures. And then we got back from Vermont to get back to Connecticut for the wedding. And my dad's like, come on, we got to go up to the pond and go fishing and this, that, and the other thing. And, but you never know. Like if you never know, just because they're girls, if you don't try it, you don't have to change the way that you were raised to accommodate. You know what I mean? Kids are adaptable, and they may fall in love with it. Like I never thought, hey, Madison, and because Caroline didn't look at fishing the same way Madison did. Finley only, and you mentioned the word dirt. Finley's the happiest kid in the world if she's digging in the sand or playing in the dirt. She doesn't need not much. Yeah. You give her a shovel and some dirt or some sand, and she's all in. But each one's different. Madison loves to fish. Caroline just likes to sit in the boat with her. So they would go out in the paddle boat, Madison on one side, Caroline on the other. And Caroline would just sit there and watch Madison fish. But the funniest thing is, I was out in the canoe with my friend. We were just fishing in the pond, and I was out there catching fish with Tony. And Madison goes, Dad, I got a fish on. She's yelling from across the pond. And what does she do? Just resourceful thinking. I was too far away, so she literally just paddled the boat in, and Andine was on the dock. And she goes, can someone take the hook out so I can go back out and fish again? She knew she didn't want to go back across the pond to catch up to me. So she went in, and Andine was there with a pair of pplyers to get the hook out of the fish's mouth, and boom, right back out there again to catch more fish.
That's awesome. Good for her.
Yeah. So just, let that be this kind of a message, you don't have to change your whole life if you have girls, even boys for that matter. Yeah. A little bit less technology, a little bit more fresh air, a little bit more nature. Will do them really well. And the cool thing is, this is going to be one of my poor segues. I finished 75 hard when I was up in Vermont. And last week on the show, Dave was like, did you have a beer, or what did you do to celebrate? And no, I didn't break my no alcohol streak going on 2 years. But I did finish 75 hard up in Vermont. And I finished my celebratory, as Dave knows, dark chocolate and peanut butter. That's it. You know what I mean? That's my go-to. And to sit by a campfire, because I'm not a s'mores person, some dark chocolate and peanut butter on the next day after I finished 75 hard was tremendous. And speaking of 75 hard, we just want to give a shout out. We've shouted out his name on the show before, but Carp, a good friend of ours, completed 75 hard 4 days ago now on last Friday. And I just want to say something. And then Dave, I want you to talk about it a little bit too, because the freaking work that dude put in to do 75 hard was just tremendous. I mean, he lost over 50. Yes, not 15, 50, 5-0. He lost over 50 pounds during 75 hard. And I don't want, we're not going to, it's his life. I'm not going to discuss his weight and stuff, but the fact that he lost 50 pounds and was so disciplined and regimented with a family, with a young 2-year-old daughter, with a wife, with life, to go through 75 hard, the 4:30 a.m. mornings, the late night rainy workouts, that's why Andy Frisella created that program. So I just want to give a shout out to Carp and just say, congrats, man. That was phenomenal. And when I got back from Vermont and Connecticut, because I was gone for 7 or 8 days, so we didn't talk as much as we did, during the first 65 days of his 75 hard journey. A couple of times when I was gone, and we had a conversation last Wednesday when he had 2 days left, and he's like, "Man, I'm so glad you're home." Just to have the morning conversation to get me going through this, through the last 3 days that I have, and it was just, it was nice to get home and get to routine. But also, I love motivation, especially when it comes to fitness stuff. But yeah, I'll let you talk about Carp for a second, because he's a close friend of ours, and kudos to him.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to hate this part of the show because he does not like any accolades like that at all. But kudos to Carp. He, and the interesting thing too is he experienced, going through the whole 75 days, which most people don't get through. The interesting thing is you run into every crazy situation that could happen in your life happens. And it did to him. He had some difficult times through that process. He got to the point of being exhausted. He just everything happened. And for him to stay the course, fight through that was incredible, and I commend him for it. And he started and had to stop because he was really sick, and then he restarted and got it done. So he really did it like longer too. He's been doing it for a long time, and kudos to him. So proud of him. I can't wait to see him. And see his transformation, because that's awesome. And now, we talked a little bit when you were up in Vermont. I picked up the slack a little bit. I was making some calls and we were chatting, because him and I were both kind of closing in right at the same time too. And I felt some of the things he was feeling. I was exhausted too. And I was like, man, all this travel and all these things happening. Like, I just want to stop. And so we were good pushing each other as well, because it is hard. They call it 75 hard for a reason. And what an incredible program, and incredible feat for him.
I want to back up to one thing you said. The most impressive thing, obviously finishing 75 hard is very impressive, but the most impressive part of 75 hard for him was he got going. The whole point, I did 75 hard, I was going to do it with him. We were going to start at the same time. Dave was a day behind us, or 2 days behind us, coming back from Tennessee. And he literally got sick. And the hardest thing about 75 hard is if you fail it 9 times out of 10, you're not starting it again. And the fact that he was laid up, we were on the same day, and then he got real sick, and we talked about it. And it was 9 days. He was like in bed sick. It took him 9 days. That's why he finished 9 days after I did, and 7 days after you, because he was down and out for 9 days. And the fact that after the 9 days, he got right back into it when he felt up for it, that may have been the most impressive part of the entire journey of 75 hard for him. And, that's super impressive, because I don't know if I would have taken 9 days off, especially if you were doing it with somebody else. And then knowing, oh shit, he's going to be done a week before me or 9 days before me, and then I got to do 9 days by myself,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So shout out to Carp. Sorry, buddy, you're going to get it from us, because what you did is very, very impressive, and we're super, super pumped. But moving on to the next topic. This is a topic I came up with, and I live in the South, so heating my home is not a major concern. We have a propane tank, we have a gas electric, hybrid type of furnace. So, because we do get, I'd say, 2 months of winter down here, but it's not anywhere like where you and I are from up in New England. And I only brought this up, and I said, I need Dave's a little bit of money talk for the listeners today, because the price of home heating oil, like we've talked about, it's expensive, drive less if you can for gas in your car, but the price of home, like someone I talked to said they would pay like $6 a gallon to fill up their fuel tank to heat their home. And if you get a long, cold Connecticut winter, one tank's not lasting you from September to freaking April. You're going to probably have to fill up twice, if not more. So this is just a question I had, and I figured I'd wait for the show to ask you about it. Now, if you're used to paying, $3 a gallon for home heating oil, right? How do you make the adjustment when it does jump like it has up to $5.50 a gallon, $5.25, $5.75, whatever it costs? Because now you're talking, it's almost twice as much. There's a 40% increase. What do you, just kind of go through that a little bit. I know you talk about budgeting and envelopes and things like that, but like, what's your advice to a dad out there or a mom that's listening that says, dude, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford to heat it now that the cost is up double and I haven't gotten double the raise. You know what I mean? When do you start budgeting for that? How do you budget for it? Like, go ahead. I'll let you have the floor, and you kind of just go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, our transformation, when we were in Connecticut, we had an interesting process learning that, because it was the first time Casey and I had ever dealt with home heating oil and the cost and all that. We had an old house, too, that wasn't energy efficient, so it made it even worse. And our first year together in our house is when oil, back in the day, oil shot up really high to over $4 a gallon. And we got, smoked that winter. But that was when we had debt, and it was our credit cards and like all these different things. And it was just adding to the debt that we had. So we started to smarten up after that. And there's a couple different things you can do, right? The first thing you can do is you can just shop the price of oil. Every time you need a fill up, you can shop around, see who's got the cheapest price. There's always someone who's got a little bit lower price. Maybe the quality of the oil isn't as good, but you can do that. If you want to get in with a company, that's what we did. We got in with a company, and what you can do is they can see the amount of oil consumption that you take over the course of a year, and they can average that out, and they'll do what's called an oil budget. And what they'll do is they'll put you on a 12-month budget, at whatever what they think the price of the oil is going to be, and you're going to pay that budget for the 12 months. And at the end of the year, if you got a shortfall, you got to make it up. And if you have excess, you can either roll it to the next budget or they'll cut you a check back. So that's one way to do it. And that was one way that I really liked it, because having a monthly budget, I knew, okay, yes, oil in the winter, it's going to cost me a couple $1,000s for home heating oil. Let me stretch that over 12 months so that when winter comes, when there's the hot Christmas, there's the holidays, there's all these different things happening in the winter that I don't want to just get hammered at one time. I want to stretch that out. So we did the budget, and we stretched it out over the course of the entire year, which worked really well for us. The other thing they do is it's like prepay. You pre-buy. Yep. You can pre-buy a certain amount of gallons at a lower price at the start of the season. So, but now you've got to have the money to do that. So the first year it might be tough. You're gonna have to start putting money away for that, leading up to it. And then when you get the pre-buy, say I want to buy 1,000 gallons of oil at maybe $3.50 or whatever it is, and then whatever the price is through the year, you already paid for your oil. So if the price goes up to $6, you're good. It's a win. But if for some reason it comes down to $1.89 or something, well, then it's a gamble. My aunt worked in the oil business for a long time, and she said that, probably 5 to 98% of the time people made out by doing the prepay, because typically the cost would rise. It very rarely goes down below that number. The companies try and do a good job of putting that number at a place where people are usually going to make out pretty well. So those are the things that with home heating oil that stand out to me. So I would either do the oil budget or like a prepay, one or the other.
Yeah, we prepay. So like I said, we have propane down here in South, which once again, you fill up the tank, it lasts you the entire year, because it doesn't, we have a gas stove, gas hot water heater. So we use a little bit of propane for those things outside of the furnace. And that's what I did when we had moved here. I bought, I don't know, it's a 500-gallon tank. And I, just asked around and said, hey, how often do you burn tank fuel, blah, 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 blah. And that was, a year ago. And I prepaid for 750 gallons. So it was a full tank and a half. And when we moved here, last fall, end of the fall, we had it topped off, I think in January, which is now 9 months ago. And I don't even think about it. Now I prepaid and it worked out, because propane, just like home heating oil, has gone through the roof. So when they come to fill my tank, I've already prepaid for it. I don't got to worry about the cost of it. I just call them up on will call and say, listen, my tank's, the only caveat is out here, they want you to be under 30%, because then it costs more for them to drive out here if they're not going to do a full tank. So I respect that. So when we hit 30% on it, I'll call them up. Boom, they'll drive in here, fill it up, give me the receipt. I already paid for it. I don't got to worry about it. It is nice if you can do it that way, but I do understand that sometimes that is a chunk of change to that not everyone can come up with. You can't always come up with $2,000 just on a whim. Well, I mean, probably 95% of the population can't do it.
But what you can do is you can start planning now for next year. Yeah. Right. So this year, maybe it's tough. Maybe you don't have that. But if it's something you think that's wise, put $200 away a month. And by the time you get there, you've got the money to do it, set it in a separate envelope and knock it out. And next year, things are going to be so much easier. This is a process. It's not just living a full force life, and doing these things isn't overnight. It doesn't just happen. It's the things that you have to live the rest of your life. So if you do that and you start now, you're going to have a little bit of a struggle this season, but next year, and you just keep that going, $200 a month. It goes into the home heating budget. And if that's what you got to do, because that's where you live, so be it. But then, on the other side too, to start saving some money and maybe reduce that cost, to start looking into energy efficient programs. I don't remember the numbers, because it was a really long time ago. We did all new windows in our house in Connecticut. And one of the other things we did is, because it was such an old house, it was built in 1948, the insulation inside the walls all disintegrated. So, there was a program going on for insulation. I could do the pour in foam insulation. We had our whole house done. And I think I think it was going to be like $10,000 to do everything. And we got like 6,500 back or something. I mean, it was crazy. And the difference that made in our house, and what dropping our home heating oil bill was astonishing. So if it's a place that you see yourself living for a long time, maybe look into things like that. We ended up leaving a few years later, so we probably didn't make out with it. But had we stayed there, that would have been an incredible investment into the property and savings over the long term.
Yeah, you helped out the people that bought your house. That's for sure.
Yeah, they got a great house for a great price, man. I still kick myself.
Crazy, listen, it all depends on where you live and stuff. But what else? There's a couple other things you wanted statistics that popped up in your mind that you want to talk about.
Yeah, one of the other things, we didn't touch on it last week too much, but Casey and I went to the Building Wealth event up in Phoenix with Dave Ramsey and his crew. It was awesome. So it got me thinking more about credit cards, because he was talking about how important it is to not have credit cards. And I read this article today, actually, and so we threw this into the notes late. Credit cards, where they're up right now. So Americans have over $887 billion in credit cards, which is up 5.5% from the first quarter of this year and up 13% from a year ago. That number is staggering to me. But what also is staggering is the percentage that it's increasing right now. And I know inflation has something to do with it, and people are relying on credit cards and debt to make it through this time. And this is the worst possible time to do something like that, because it's just magnifying the problem for you. It's prolonging the problem. Yes, inflation sucks and it's terrible, but at some point it ends and it starts coming back to reality. But if you just load up on credit cards, this problem is just going to continue for you. You're going to deal with the inflation, then that's going to come down. You're going to have the bad habits of putting things on credit cards anyway. That's another conversation. But now you're going to have all this debt that you racked up through the inflation period, and it's just going to magnify it. And it's astonishing. That number's astonishing me. I don't know what you think about it, but I heard it and I was just like, it's crazy.
Yeah, dude. And don't put home heating oil on a credit card.
No.
Yeah.
Don't put anything on credit cards. Yeah. Nothing. But especially home heating oil and food. Like, no.
Don't put consumables onto a credit card, because then if you're paying $5.50 a gallon for home heating oil, you're really paying like $7 a gallon once you tack the interest on there.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the interest, right? Here are the interest numbers to go along with the total debt amounts. Interest rates right now are on average at 17.96%, which is a 3.5% jump from just a month ago and 10.8% from a year ago. So the money that you're borrowing to bail yourself out right now, you're being charged 18% on that money, which is just awful. Because like you said, if you're putting consumables on the credit card, these things that you don't even have, that you're looking back, like food's always a good one. You eat the food, you digest it, it comes out the other end, it's gone.
Yep.
And you're still paying for that food months, years later. Like it's a terrible, terrible situation that we're in. And I just urge people, you've heard me preach this on the show, cut up the credit cards. Don't rely on the credit cards. It's magnifying your problem, and it's only going to make things exponentially worse.
Yeah, listen, right now there's no better time. With the holidays coming up, we've talked about budgeting for the holidays, getting a second job if you need it, but do not, swallow your pride. It's okay if you get a second job. Stop caring about what people think. I sent Dave a meme this morning. My CEO of my company had sent it to me, or to the company, to all employees this morning. I sent it to Dave when my email came through, and it says 5 things to quit right now. I have it right here on my phone. 5 things to quit right now. Trying to please everyone. Boom. Fearing change. Living in the past. Putting yourself down, and overthinking. I just figure, stop caring trying to please everybody else. Go get a second job and make sure you can survive. You don't want to go backwards. You want to keep going forwards.
Pain is temporary. You don't have to do a second job for the rest of your life. We're not saying that, but you could do a temporary job for the next 6, 8, 10 months. Maybe it's a year. Maybe it's 2 years. So be it. You have nothing to be ashamed of through that process. It happens. I've done it. I've had 3-4 jobs at a time.
Yep.
Just to fight through and get things done. And you can't worry about what anybody else thinks. You got to be focused on yourself, because it's still possible to build wealth and be financially free. But making these same common mistakes, I'm too good for that. I'm not going to go stock shelves, or I'm not going to go deliver packages, or, deliver for Uber, or whatever it may be. Like, you got to get out of your own head. And that's the biggest thing. People are always like concerned about what everybody else thinks. Who the fuck cares what anybody else thinks?
Yep.
At the end of the day, if you're providing for your family, that's all that matters. And do the things that you know are the right thing to provide for your family, because putting things on credit cards is not it's not your savior.
You know who else did that? Swallowed their pride and went and got a part-time job, and it's segueing right into our book recommendation of the day. Is, I don't know if you guys know who Walker Hayes is. Walker Hayes is a country music superstar. He's most famous for Applebee's on a Date Night, that song. Okay. And that's the book. Yeah. He wrote a book, by the way. Glad You Are Here. 2 Unlikely Friends, Breaking Bread and Fences. Walker Hayes and Craig Allen Cooper. Okay, glad you are here. You are here. Okay, and I segued to that because, as you know, most people go to Nashville and they want to be a country superstar, and they end up broke and going back home. Well, this guy was so determined, he swallowed his damn pride, and he was working a produce shift at a grocery store at like 2 a.m. So before he'd go sing, he'd go sing at bars at night trying to make it. And then in the morning, he'd get up and go freaking work produce at a grocery store for 6-hour shifts in the morning so he could get out and then go write songs all day long. Not to mention, okay, no one's above that, because this is a multi-bazillionaire, I'm sure, at this point. A country music superstar who swallowed his pride and went and got a second job because it provided for his family. Okay, 6 kids, all right? You do what you have to do. I have 3. All right. Dave's got 2. It don't matter how many kids you have. Your number one and most important thing you have to worry about is those that you need to take care of. So a second job it's not like you said, it's not a life sentence. But if you had a second job and it paid your mortgage every month, let me tell you, that would make your life a whole lot easier if you did it, And if you have to make a small sacrifice in the short term for the long term gains of staying on the path. And that's what Walker Hayes did. And this book is really good. Okay. It's not a long read. It's only about 150 pages or so, maybe 160 pages. And it is a story. Okay. It's his life. It's a story. Walker Hayes and Craig Allen Cooper. Craig Allen Cooper is his pastor at his church. And Walker Hayes, as you know, is the superstar country musician. Okay. And they're 2 unlikely paths on how they became the best of friends. And now they literally live next door to each other. It's unbelievable, the story. And it's just really, it's hard to describe it, but it's just, like I said, it describes their past, how they're intertwined. It's in the book is written really well. It's written first person. So in every chapter, Walker writes his part of the chapter from his viewpoint of the story. And then Craig writes his half of the chapter from his viewpoint of the story. And it's phenomenal. These guys have been through everything together. They've lived next door to each other. I mentioned Walker Hayes wasn't, had a job as, at a grocery store just to make ends meet to survive. He's very open about his alcoholism that he was able to battle through. Okay. And here you go. Now think about this for a second. This multi-mega millionaire superstar country musician didn't have enough money for a vehicle. And Craig Allen Cooper, who's his best friend, literally gave this up-and-coming singer his van so he could get around. So he had a vehicle to drive to bring his kids to sports practices and everything. I mean, it's a phenomenal book. Go read it. I mean, it's, for you, especially for those faith-based that listen to our show, there's a lot of good scripture and there's a lot of good, references to the Bible in here because Craig is a pastor. And that's where Psalm 62, our Bible verse of the day came, is one that he always stuck with. But it's a really, really good read. You learn all about the highs and the lows. And Craig, because the other thing is, this is why faith is part of Full Force Fathers, because not everyone is engulfed in their faith. There's no right way or wrong way to start. But Walker Hayes, he says the word hate. He hated going to church. He hated when he'd walk in there and everyone look at him. He didn't know anybody. And that's where he met this guy. And it took him some time to warm up and get to church. And now he's one of the most religious people you'll ever meet. because he gave his life to Christ. And just go read the book. It's great. And you get the whole, and it's awesome to hear a book written the way this one is, because you get both sides of the story, right? The end is the same, but you see it and hear it how they both described it. It's a really, really good book.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, and just kind of I love stories like that, just to see people succeed and fight through the most difficult times of their lives and push through. And the fact that he had someone there that he could rely on, and Craig Allen Cooper, that helped him and gave him a car when he needed it so he could take his kids around. Like, what a great story. It's great. Showing the human spirit, and what that is about. And I think that's an inspiration for everybody, that no matter where you are in life, you can make the change, you can start getting better. So yeah, go check that one out.
Yeah. Take one step forward today. Listen, if Walker Hayes, who everybody knows, can get a second job, you can get a second job. I could get one. I could use one. I could go get a second job working nights somewhere. Dave did it. You did it. You worked at Home Depot part-time for a time there, working overnights so to make sure you didn't go backwards,
Yeah, dude, it wasn't easy. We moved out here and it has been anything but easy since Casey and I both left great jobs in Connecticut, and we came out here, didn't know what we were going to do. We knew that we love it here, and we wanted to make this this our home. And there was a point, like, with a couple things that I had going on, that I needed money and I needed to come in. I was working overnights at Home Depot. I was a package runner for UPS. Okay. I was running packages for UPS for, peanuts. But at the end of the day, I made a commitment to my family that, like, they were going to have the life that I wanted them to have. And it didn't matter what I had to do. Like, that was going to happen. And it's okay to do that. It's all right to do that. And I'll tell you what, your kids are going to look up to you. What's funny too, is that when I did that, I've had some cool jobs in my life, and I've got a few Emmy awards, and, like, there's some cool shit that I've done in my life, right? The coolest thing in Bryce's mind is that I got to ride in a UPS truck and drive a forklift at Home Depot. Those are the things he looks at me. He's like, Dad, you got to do those things. So like you just can't worry about that stuff. Your kids don't give a shit. They just want you to be there, be happy, be with them, support them. And you just got to do what you need to do to be a great dad and a great provider. That's it. End of story.
Absolutely. And we'll end the show with that right there. So we appreciate you listening. Keep listening. Keep letting people know about it. It's always nice to hear comments and feedback. And, hey, this is episode 29. So we're going strong, and I appreciate everyone listening. I know Dave does too. So we're going to get you out of here and get on your life and keep moving forward.
Yeah, everybody, keep living the full force life. Please like, share, comment on the show. Get it out to as many people as we can, because that's why we're here. We want to help as many fathers and women, for that matter. Everybody who's listening. I know we've got a lot of ladies listening too, so we want to help as many people as we can. Keep living the full force life, and we'll talk to you soon.